Welcome to Friends and Neighbors. I'm Sherry Tatum, your co-host today. And I always like to say, for our guests, if they've written a certain kind of book about a certain subject, which Eddie Anders did, it was about, he committed suicide, was going to. So if you have someone, or if yourself is feeling that way, or you've had someone to commit suicide, I hate to even say it, but please listen as we talk to Eddie about his journey with this. Now, I want to preface this with Eddie is a wonderful, wonderful musician. He's also an author. Waking Up Dead is his book. And the title is enough to make you want to read the book. Now, he's an author, he's a musician, he's worked with Emmylou Harris, am I right? Mm-hmm. Vince Gill. He's got his CD has all the wonderful people on it that he has worked with. He does keyboards, right?
Yes.
He's a singer. But Eddie, you got to the point in your life that you said, I'm done. This is it. Even though you had all these wonderful accolades, you had all this wonderful talent, you said, done, I'm done. So tell me what led up to that point.
Sure. Well, I think people who knew me all these years and had seen me in different stations of life, I was the last guy you would ever thought was going to be a victim of suicide. My own family wasn't aware that I'd become self-destructive, but we went through a series of things over several years. In the 90s, I had my own place in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, a restaurant, theater, family entertainment venue called Eddie's Heart and Soul Cafe. I performed everywhere you could perform in East Tennessee. Being a part of all that, was part of the community. It was great. Gary McSpadden and I had done, who was with the Gaithers, and the Gaither Trio and the vocal band. We had done a show together there called the Great American Opry for 3 years prior to me doing the cafe. So that sets the plate for this, in that I was the victim of a very ugly partnership deal that I lost. Oh. Nancy and I were only 30% equity owners, even though it was our sweat and work and my name on the marquee, and they were silent partners, but they owned the land, so they had a lot of control in the whole situation. And we fought everything we could do, but basically I lost everything, had to file bankruptcy. I mean, it's a long story. Wow. Part of that's in the book, because people go, how does a guy like you?
Yes.
And I was going through all this stuff, the depression and yet I was a great performer. I grew up being taught how to perform for God's people. I've been singing in church all my life. I'd been on the stage with everybody you could think of. I was ordained in the ministry in 1980. I was a worship leader. I was a teaching pastor. I've been on shows like this all my life, off and on. I mean, I can name them all, but it's not about that. It's just, I was in front of people all the time sharing the gospel. And I was the high energy guy. I was the guy that lit the room. I was the eternal optimist, you can make it, you can do it, wow. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So nobody would ever dreamed I was that guy. Yes. And my own family did not know. But after we lost the cafe, and then I tried to get back into ministry, but I just never really could get my legs back under me. I had lots of opportunities. A friend of mine asked me to come be on his staff, which I did for about 3.5 years. I had ruptured diverticulitis, gallstones, and appendicitis all at once.
Oh, my word.
Almost died from that, and that came from internalizing the struggle, the battle I'd had with this partnership deal. Once I recovered from that, so you can see God looking out for me.
Yes.
I came very close to succumbing to that whole deal. Once I got healthy, I got back on the road, ended up becoming a worship leader at a church in Iowa. And the church went from about 450, 500 people on Sunday morning. A year and a half later, 2,300 people on Sunday.
Goodness.
And it exploded. We moved to a new campus. Bottom line was, I was the oldest guy on staff by a mile. And I was still fighting this depression thing, this discouragement on the inside. Talked to a friend of mine one morning in a prayer meeting about 6:30 and said, explained to him what I was going through, what I was feeling, and it was getting very dark. And he basically said to me, what have you got to be depressed about? Everybody wants to be you.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I just kept it between me and God. I was searching Scripture. I was teaching the Word. I was writing some of the best worship stuff I'd written. I was seeking God, but I was believing the lies of the enemy that I was a ball and chain to everybody that knew me. The final straw was I got called in on a Monday morning and to a staff meeting where my pastor and his associate said to me, his worship leader, and one of the teaching pastors, you're too old to be relevant anymore at age 50. And he was 30, or early 30s, everybody else was 20-something. So they declared me to be too old to be
at 50.
of any benefit. Yeah, I couldn't possibly be relevant no matter what we did. So
that's insane. That's totally wrong, Eddie.
I'd been collecting medications that I'd been given after that surgery, and my doctor I trained myself in the decade of the 90s in Pigeon Forge to go without sleep. And like coming home 2 weeks into this recovery from all that surgery back all that time ago, back in 2001, they gave me double doses of Ambien to sleep at night, to retrain me how to sleep, because I'd lived for 15 years on about 3 hours a night.
Well, that's not really good.
Well,
Ambien.
that complicated the situation.
Yes.
But I started stockpiling it when I started to become self-destructive. And I drove off on July the 6th, 2006. I drove to Minneapolis, which was 4 hours away. Checked into a hotel, paid cash, left notes in my office. My wife had no idea. My kids had no idea. Nobody had any idea that I was at that point.
Oh, you drove that far to take your life. Am I understanding that right?
I didn't want to be found until it was too late. So going to Minneapolis, I knew I was going to go to St. Louis, Minneapolis, or Chicago. And I didn't know until 4:30 that morning that Minneapolis was the place. But that was 3 days after they told me, you're too old to be relevant. And I went, and I wrote notes to Nancy and the kids on, I truly believed at this point in my life, with all we'd been through, that she would be far better off without me.
That was a lie of the devil.
Yeah, but you hear people, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to and ministered to and shared time with in the last years now, since all this, since God reinvented me, how many people get to that point that they really do feel like that they are no use to this world any longer, for whatever reason.
It's an all-time high, they say, suicide is right now. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's even the '1 killer among teenagers in America.
I know, I've read that. That's just, so sad.
But if you look at what's happened in our world, everybody has lived by their nerve endings forever. We've been exposed to everything. We're bombarded by bad news constantly.
Constantly.
Back in the 70s and 80s, even in as late as early as the 60s, there was a lot of people who promoted the idea of anarchy and everything is hopeless and God is dead and yada.
Yeah.
But what's happened is all that stuff has taken seed, and our culture has become permeated with self-destructive behavior. Whether it may not be suicidal, but it's actually, there was I won't name the network, but one network actually had a series that tracked the life of a girl who took her own life.
Oh, I didn't.
And it was one of the most highly viewed among teenagers and college students, one of the most highly watched series on television.
That shows you where we are. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so many of their and even my heroes, years ago and through time have become self-destructive behaviors, taking them out way before their time.
Well, when you got to the motel room,
right?
What were you just resolved into taking your life? Did you just have it? This is what I'm going to do.
It was a well thought out plan.
Did you do it?
I did.
You did that.
I did. I checked in the hotel room. I had already taken I had 6 vials of Dramamine. I had half a dozen Phenergan, which is high-powered anti-nausea meds they give you after surgery or for the pain medication not to make you sick. I had some other things that were anti-nausea because I didn't want to, forgive me for being graphic, throw up the Ambien
medicine.
that I had
Yeah.
stockpiled. I'd stockpiled, I had 2 bottles of 100 each that I had stockpiled.
Oh, my word.
So after I took pictures of my wife and kids out, put them on the bed, got my Bible out, had prayer for my kids and my wife. And actually, I mean, it was almost, it wasn't communion, but it was almost like that.
Yeah.
And I prayed the Lord, I'm asking you to have grace on me,
Ask for forgiveness?
I did. But
did.
I said, I just can't do this
I can't
anymore.
do it anymore.
And Nancy needs somebody that can be free and
word.
full, for her to lead a full life the rest of the way home.
Oh,
And my kids. And I took the first bottle.
you did take that whole bottle?
So I had,
100?
yeah.
Ambien?
Yes. And we know after the fact that, because the guys collected all this stuff, I was there on Thursday lunch. So Thursday night, all day Friday, Saturday morning, they're looking for me all over the country. They had no idea where I was, but they knew what I had gone to do. But I left no indication where I was going. I left my cell phone in my office. I destroyed my computer and trashed it because it had all this, it had pictures of my career, loaded with pictures of the career, loaded with music I'd done, loaded with ministry stuff. So it was like, that was the first step of suicide. That was the first step of killing myself, was I destroyed all those things.
Oh, my.
Threw them into a dumpster, then got into the hotel, checked in under assumed name, paid cash, said I was there.
You covered all your steps.
They weren't going to find me until it was too late.
Yes.
So Saturday morning, they were at my house praying, friends and family. My son had flown in. Some friends flew him in from Orlando. So they're at the house round the clock. I had reports that there were, at this church I'd been serving, there were, on Friday, there were as many as 700 to 800 people who showed up to pray for me. It was nuts. And there were people at my house, friends of ours, around the clock with Nancy. And Nancy was praying the whole time that I was sleeping somewhere and the Lord would watch over me and the angel would watch over me and that I was just sleeping and that I'd be found okay.
Oh.
So when
What
the
a
sun came
precious
up on
prayer.
Saturday morning, the third day, so to speak, they really thought that it was all about just finding me now, So my pastor friend and his associate that had pronounced their sentence on me Monday of that same week now came to my house to plan the memorial service when the inevitable finding me wherever they would find me was going to be done.
Wow.
So they didn't even pray with my family the whole time I was gone, but they did come to plan the memorial.
That's incredible.
While they're sitting in my kitchen planning my memorial service, I don't remember doing it. I don't remember the phone call. I don't remember anything about it. I called home. I had woken up on that hotel room.
After those 100 Ambien.
I'd had about 115 because I woke up that Saturday morning and I do remember being on the floor and looking across, eye level across the bed at the television. And the only thing I thought was, I've got to finish what I began. And so there was more Ambien, the other bottle I had opened and spilled evidently sometime. I don't remember any of it. But I do remember there's Ambien on the floor beside me, and I began to pick it up and take more of them. So we do know that from the count that was left, the guys had collected, I had taken somewhere around 115 Ambien, plus all that other stuff,
Golly.
I mean, if you think about
that should have.
taking 3 vials of Dramamine, that alone
Yeah.
would pretty well mess you up. I called home, and for some reason, there were just cell phones everywhere, but for some reason, Nancy answered the phone. Other people had been doing that for her because she couldn't handle it. She answered, and it was me. And I called home to tell her goodbye. I don't remember any of it. They kept me on the phone for 45 minutes. They found me. It's the short version, right? And what happened from that point through Monday morning was just remarkable.
So but they came to the motel.
They called.
Did they get an ambulance?
I had friends of mine with the FBI, with the police. Chuck Grassley, the senator in Iowa, who's been Iowa senator for 40 years. I mean, he's one of my closest friends and went to my church. All these people were involved in looking for me. So my FBI friends and my police friends, they notified the authorities in Minneapolis as to where I was. I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
They came. I don't remember the trip to the hospital. Only thing I remember was being bound up. You know, I don't know if it was, I don't know exactly how they had me strapped down or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do remember the sound of a siren and that's it. And the next thing I remember, I woke up in the hospital on Saturday evening.
So they took you straight to
the hospital.
Straight to the hospital.
Minneapolis.
Okay, now we're going to have to take a short break here, as always. But when we get back, I want to further that. But I also want to know how it affected Nancy and your family. So stay with us. I mean, this is an awesome story, and you need to hear it. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Friends and Neighbors. Welcome back to Friends and Neighbors, and we're talking to Eddie Anders about his book, Waking Up Dead, and his attempt at suicide, which he did, but God was merciful, brought him back, and I'm gonna come back with that. Now, Eddie, just to jump back into it, you had taken all the 100-something Ambiens, you had taken the Dramamine, and nobody knew where you were, but they found out. They came to get you, then they took you to the hospital.
Right.
Now, Nancy, your wife, knows all of this.
Yes.
I can't imagine what she was going through, not knowing where you were, and then know you're in the hospital 4 hours away.
Right.
What happened?
So they hopped in the car, along with a lot of other friends, and came that way, our closest friends, just to support her and our kids. And our kids were already grown and out of the house. I mean, you know, but that being said, they all hopped in a car and drove to Minneapolis. So the next thing I know, the first thing I remember was Jason, my son, being there. He came in first because they flew him in straight from Orlando. And, you know, they all came in. Nancy came in, flying in the room and jumped into bed with me, hugging me and kissing on me. Lindsay the same way, my daughter. So, you know, this is the good part, okay, because being found, I have no idea. I mean, it's just totally a God thing. It's God answering prayer. What I tell people is I took my own life and God gave it back to me.
Amen.
And the one thing he told me after all this was over, as I went through the healing process, was I allowed the enemy to take you to a place that only I could rescue you from, so that you would never doubt my love for you and your value to me ever again. Oh. You have nothing to prove to any pastors or deacons or elders or parishioners or anybody. I love you with perfect love. That's all you need to know. And we're going to live life. We're going to reinvent you. So the reinvention began. On Sunday afternoon, I was watching channel surfing while I'm waiting on the doctors to come in. My kids had gone downstairs to the cafeteria to get something to eat. I'm channel surfing, hit TBN. I'm giving you the brief Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
But I hit TBN and TD Jakes, boom. Okay, I'm laying there. I'm miserable. I don't feel healed. I'm embarrassed. I'm afraid. What am I going to do now? How can I not kill? I mean, I was still down on myself because I did all this. Now I've made it just worse, okay?
Because you're still alive.
Oh, I really have messed it up.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen now, you know? And so I hit the channel, Jakes is on, and the first thing he says, I've got the DVD of this, boom. The spirit of suicide's on you, and if God hadn't rescued you, you'd be dead right now.
Woo.
And everybody in the room looked up at the television, you know. Nancy and our friends that were in there, and the nurse who, you know, they put you under 24-hour surveillance, so the nurse was right there. Yeah. And she had been sitting there just reading and being attentive to me. And she took the Gideon Bible out of the bedstand and started opened it up and started reading it. And everybody's weeping, and Jake's is preaching about that the blood speaks over your life, that we overcome by the power of the blood and the word of our testimony, and that the power and the anointing of God is on you. And this is where the power and the strength will come from and will break the power of depression in your life. Well, it was like God screwed a hose on top of my head and flushed me out and filled me up. And that process of healing began. So I say to you, that I'm the living, breathing textbook definition of a new creation. And all those things that I had preached about and talked about and sung about and written about and led people, you know, and taught them about, suddenly was so real and tangible to me.
But what it said, Eddie, was how much he does love us.
Right.
That he's always there.
Right.
He's always there. He sees everything.
Right.
He knows our heart, and he knows the enemy.
That's right.
But thank God you knew him, and you had people, your wife, your family, praying for you. How important is for us as Christians to pray for others, because we're not all strong. Right. We all have weaknesses. We all feel like we're not worthy sometimes, and we need that encouragement, and to know that He's always there, and that He loves us, and that He will be there. He'll show up. Right. He showed up with T.D. Jakes. Thank God. Can you, I mean, that's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
That's another miracle in your life.
And everybody knows it.
Yes,
the people at the people at the hospital knew it. I went back to visit the ER guy that had attended to me that I didn't even remember him. And I went back to the hospital to see some people, and I met him. I'd met him before, but I didn't remember it. So mentally, I met him for the first time, and he hugged me with tears running down his face. He'd been the head of ER at that hospital in the inner city of Minneapolis for 35 years. He said, "I've never seen that lethal of an attempt suicide fail. There's nothing else but divine providence that's done this."
Only God could have spared you and brought you back from that. Just the Dramamine, Eddie. I mean, really, let's get real. Would have done it, much less 135 Ambien.
115.
115. 115.
Right.
I mean, seriously, I mean, if you're not a walking testimony, I don't know what one is. And just getting that word from T.D. Jakes on your life, it's just, it gives everybody out there hope to know that He's still on the throne. He's still the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's a miracle-working God.
Here's a very strategic and important part of our story. And I say our story because
we got a minute.
Mine and Nancy and our kids. Yeah. When God healed me, He healed them. They had been through it with me. They had lived through the cafe thing with me. They'd been on the road with me. Nancy's whole life with me had been about helping me in the ministry. My kids have been involved in productions and on television and in the shows, and they'd always been a part of what we did. When God healed me in this, and they even wrote in the forwards in the book from their own perspective, and they would tell you if they were sitting here that they saw an authentic, genuine miracle and saw God absolutely reinvent their father. And we had a good life prior to that, but
it was so much better.
Yeah.
But I've got to take a break. We're going to come back and say goodbye to Eddie and tell you how, if you want to get in touch with Eddie and to get his book. So come right back. There'll be more Friends and Neighbors. Well, we only have a minute, and of course you look at my face, but Eddie, if someone wants to get Waking Up Dead, what do they do, or to contact you?
Sure. All the above. The best thing to do is go to eddieanders.org, eddieanders.org.
Okay.
That's all you got to do. Everything is there, including you can email me personally. It's got all the music and the stories there, and a lot of things that people have said about it, and it's got pictures from my career and all that business, but it's more about me than you'd ever want to know, but that's the place to go.
Well, it's awesome. Awesome book. And this is awesome. And it's mine.
Yes, it is.
I get both of them. So anyway, Eddie, I want to thank you for being transparent, for talking with us and helping our viewers out there, because there's a great many people that need to know that God loves them, and you are loved. Remember that. Jesus loved you enough to die for you. We hope to see you again here on Friends and Neighbors, and thank you.
Thank you.
Eddie.
Sure.
Thank you.